Hello? Hello?
Hi, this is Ryan with the
Oh.
Hi, we just muted you for a room. You still there?
I'm here. I hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, how are you today?
Good, and you?
Good. So we've got you muted in the room, and we will we'll unmute you once they start going. That way everyone can get connected and test things without being obnoxious. Do you have any questions for me?
That's everything. They already voted me in earlier before we went into closed session.
Yeah, I talked to Tosh about that. I figured I'd just keep you muted in the room. That way, when you come in, you're like, hey, testing. We're not, it's not being broadcast.
Yep, that's cool.
All right, thanks.
Yep, no problem. Thanks.
Dr. Roundtree, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Okay. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Mr. Roberts and Ms. Bond, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, excuse me, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Mr. Roberts, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to return student A to school?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Roberts and Ms. Franklin? Sorry. Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to exempt application 1 from compulsory attendance due to religious exemption in Montgomery County Public Schools?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Guitry and Ms. Parton? Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
No.
Ms. Purcell.
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Roberts and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Dr. Guidry,
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Reed will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Currently, I have no speakers signed up for public address. And seeing and hearing none, public address is now closed. Okay, moving on to our next item on the agenda are consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. Our next agenda item is financial reports. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Roberts and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Dr. Guidry,
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Okay, that moves us into our business meeting, and our first item on the agenda is a report from the superintendent. Dr. Gimple will provide our report.
Yes, thank you so much, and good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming out here tonight and tuning in. Just a couple announcements to get us going here. The first thing was I got to attend my first 4 graduations in Montgomery County here, and I must say that they were all unbelievably organized, so hats off to our principals and their counselors and the rest of the teams for each of our high schools. What great events and how very different each one was, too. Every one of them has their own flavor. I know that all the board members here came out and attended several of these, and just a great day. It was a beautiful, beautiful Friday night and a beautiful Saturday. Our kids did fantastic, well-behaved, respectful. Our parents came out. Many, many community members, too, that didn't even have kids that were graduating, just came out just to be there. It just speaks volumes about how awesome this county is and the amount of support that our public schools get. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out and making those events fantastic for our graduating seniors. Really excited for our 2 new principals, one at Kips, one at Gilbert Linkus. They'll be starting here very shortly. They were approved tonight. And also our new HR director. Cannot wait to get to work with that gentleman, and more news on that later. But yeah, we're just excited about the people that we're putting in place. We have outstanding leadership coming in, and I cannot wait to add them to our teams. We have a lot of work going on here this summer, and we're just getting ready to kick off several of these things, and many of them have already been going on. Of course, policy reviews, everybody has heard about sort of on an ongoing basis, and there's a lot to do there. Mike and his group over there, Dr. Brown with the CIP, he's had his 3rd meeting, I think, this week with his committee that is putting together the 10-year plan for that. We are looking at some compliance training through a program called Vector. We're going to kick off our 4E, which will have some completely different MCPS name to it. Collective bargaining, those negotiations have begun, as well as a number of other different things. So there are a lot of things going on this summer, a lot of plans being put in place, a lot of organizational type structuring, and the things that are going to just move us forward as a division. So really excited to get to work here with our team. We also had our first big meeting this past Wednesday of our cabinet, and that was a fantastic meeting, great way to kick off our summer and really put all the heads together here in central office and working towards the same goals. And so very excited for that to kind of get moving. We have lots of teams participating in regional championships coming up in the next few days. Just a ton. Auburn will play baseball, softball, soccer, all at Christiansburg High School. Many of these games are tomorrow night. They start at 5 p.m. So all three of their teams, baseball, softball, and soccer, will be playing. Christiansburg boys soccer also plays tomorrow in the region. These are all championship games for their region. And this is remarkable for only having 4 high schools to have this many teams that are involved. But Christiansburg plays at 7 p.m. at home in their regional championship. Blacksburg also has a soccer playoff. They will be in the 4D championship Wednesday night at home. They are the number 1 seed, so they're at home for that. Blacksburg girls soccer, they're at Wednesday night at 6:30. They're traveling, though. They'll be at James Wood, also in the region championship. Blacksburg boys tennis will be in a regional championship out in Charlottesville. And we have a ton of track athletes that have either won the region or have finished with high enough performances that they're traveling to states on Friday and Saturday. And so classes 1 and 2 will be at JMU and classes 3 and 4 at Liberty University. And that's the state championship for outdoor track for boys and girls. And so we just have some tremendous athletes competing over the next couple of days. So please come out to Christiansburg High School or Blacksburg High School, where we're hosting some of these events Wednesday and Thursday night. And then, of course, if you're around and want to travel a little bit to JMU or to Liberty for track, our athletes are amongst the very best in the state competing in those events. And that's my report for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gimple. So moving on, we have 2 presentations this evening that will start to get us geared up for starting a new strategic plan. Later this evening, we have a strategic plan update for our plan that ends here in 2026. But, we need to do some data collection and have some community conversations so that we can make sure that MCPS is headed in the right direction and the way that the community would like us to go. So, our first presentation this evening related to helping shepherd us through the strategic plan process, potentially, is from K-12 Coalition. So Dr. Mo Gaffney and Jason Stricker, who are both with K-12 Coalition, will begin their presentation on their strategic plan process proposal. This is a presentation and no action is expected. Thank you both for being here with us tonight.
There's up. Okay, good. Well, good evening, board members and Dr. Gumbel. It is so great to be here. And so thank you for allowing us to come and share. How great to hear about all those sporting events already. All right, so we're going to just very briefly start with our introductions, talk a little bit about K-12 Coalition and our relationship that we already have with you all. Jason is going to dig deeply. He's our expert on strategic planning, and he's going to really dig into the 3-stage engagement overview, and he's going to talk about all of those. And then we're going to ask for your involvement. We've shared with you some of our strategic plans that we've done here in Virginia and across the country. And so if you've seen those in our proposal, but also in our presentation, we're going to ask you what kind of things you're excited about in those. If you didn't get a chance to look at them, we'll let you off the hook. It's not a homework quiz. So just in our introduction, a little bit about me. I'm a lifelong educator here in Virginia. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm a retired principal, and I taught in Charlottesville City, Albemarle County, some independent schools, and then also at the University of Virginia. I'm a triple Who, but I have a Hokie. So I know there's Hokies here, and so when I was driving down, my youngest daughter graduated from Tech, and my heart just got warm. So, and that's hard to say for a Wahoo, right? So anyway, good to meet all of you all and see you. Jason, you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening, board members, staff, superintendent. I'm Jason Stricker. I'm Chief Policy Officer of K-12 Coalition, former first grade and 11th grade teacher, high school principal, chief academic officer, and I spend most of my time now working with executive teams on strategic planning and implementation of their strategic plans as well. So it's nice to be here. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
All right, so just a little bit about K-12 Coalition. We have over 20 years of working in the K-12 space. We have partnerships with over 100 charter networks, plus 15 state education, including bordering Maryland. We work with their leadership team, implementing leadership coaching for all of the principals, superintendents, and assistant superintendents. We have over 7,000 school districts, and we impact 1.1 million educators. So a little bit about our work here in Virginia. Strategic planning is something that we do across the country, and here in Virginia, we're really proud of the one that's just down the street at Roanoke City Public Schools and the results that they have achieved from that strategic plan, and Jason led that work, as well as Charlottesville City, and they're also getting great results, so it's pretty exciting. We work with leadership development and coaching. And so we work with the principals, we work with superintendents, all of those areas as well. And then you all may have heard of iTeach. That's our alternative certification route where we get your teacher's license and in the classroom and prepared. And we also develop and coach those teachers because we know that's what keeps them around. And we have done curriculum audits with Loudon and some of our Northern Virginia partners, and we work in Danville and Henrico, really coaching their teachers as well. And then our teacher retention, we're focused on that as well, an important part. So Montgomery County Public Schools, it's beautiful here. You all have a lovely community. The fact that you have people coming to graduation that are not graduating, we know how long graduations are. That's a big deal, and that speaks a lot about your culture and your community. In speaking with Dr. Gumbel, he was really talking about how great his team is and his folks that he has, and he's excited about bringing some systems and structures to that. And so in your leadership, you've already started with your transition, your 90-day plan, all the things, and so we're excited to share with you a vision for what that looks like in transition planning and strategic planning. And Jason, this is a great strategic opportunity, so I'll let you turn it over. I'll turn it over to you. And
Thanks, Mo.
hang on to that. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to jump right into what we'd envision for the process, but know that this could be a very customized approach, and the work that we do in divisions across the state and in other districts and LEAs across the country, it always looks a little different, and necessarily so, because every LEA is a little different and has different needs. You all are at a unique time where you have a new superintendent, you have a transition moving forward, great set of sort of processes and proposals in the 90-day analysis and the 90-day plan, also doing your CIP. And so you're at a very unique time to really capitalize on all of that work moving forward. We're going to talk about how these pieces could potentially come together in this process, not just for the board, for the superintendent, but really for the community and for the staff doing this work every day as well. And that starts, I'm going to start on stage 3 and work backwards. So stage 3 is really about developing your strategic plan, typically a 4 to 6 month period of time. You can see here from September to January. And it's a very inclusive process that includes staff, it includes the community, typically about 6 to 8 meetings across this period of time. Lots of board involvement as you all are thinking about and approving the vision, mission, core beliefs, and the sort of evolution of those based on what exists currently. We know that organizations, especially in the last 5 years, school districts have changed in response to the community needs quite a lot. And so this strategic planning process and the unique opportunity that you have now is to respond to that change. And to respond to that in a way that really involves the voice of the community, as well as honors the work of the staff that they've been doing up to this transition, and then honors the vision of the new superintendent and that staff as well. To do all of that, not only do we have to work with a steering committee that's internal and external stakeholders, do the work of strategic planning, which I'll talk about in just a moment, but make sure that your system is set up for successful implementation of the plan. So what's unique about our process is that in these 3 stages, we're going to actually try to understand and make some recommendations about how the system is set up for successful implementation before we develop a plan so that your plan can, in fact, be successful. And so that's stage 2. Stage 2 is about the leadership structures and alignment. What is the system ready to do? What are the bright spots that exist in the system? And what are some areas for improvement? This is not about people, it's about the structures. We know that you all have amazing talent here in MCPS. And so how do we enable that talent to do their very best work through a great structure? Some of these may be small tweaks, some may be moderate. We don't know yet, but that's what stage 2 is all about, to do an analysis of what the system is capable of currently and what are some areas that it could improve upon in terms of its capabilities. Stage 1 is about understanding current state of the system, not necessarily the structure, but what are the programmatic things that are happening really well? What type of results are you getting in reading, in math, in science? We know that you're tracking pretty well in math. You're somewhat flat, if not a little bit declining in some areas around reading, based on a recent analysis that we've done, and fairly flat in science. Not a bad thing, very similar to what many divisions across the state are trying to tackle. This is hard, dynamic work. The question is, how do you scale what's working, some of those things in math that could be applied to science, and how do you improve upon the areas that need improvement? The transition team process is an opportunity to elevate all of that. It's much deeper than a typical assessment of data that happens in traditional strategic planning processes, and I'll talk about why it's much deeper than that. But ultimately, what the transition team process would yield are short-term and long-term recommendations that help us understand the needs of the system, the capabilities that we need to design for in stage 2, which help inform the strategic plan. That's how the 3 pieces really come together. So you're at a unique time, and I think this is a unique process. We actually don't get an opportunity in every strategic planning engagement and partnership to do all 3 of these things. And so we're excited about the potential to work with you on these 3 things and create some connectivity. Stage 1, I'm going to take you very briefly through each of these stages so you understand a little more deeply what they might look like. Stage 1 is the transition team. So this is where a team of 30 to 40 members from within the district, within the division, as well as the community come together. And you can see the types of folks that are involved. Certainly district leadership and school-based staff, but also families, community members that represent different voices and areas of your community, Chamber of Commerce, local elected officials, your faith-based partners, and higher education folks. Not a exhaustive list here, but the type of profile of members that we want to see on a transition team. Why? This is different than Dr. Gumpel's 90-day analysis. That was his analysis with his staff based on interviews that he did and work that he did. The transition team now is an opportunity to validate many of those things, to really sharpen that focus, but to do that through the lens of a much broader team that hopefully can provide a very objective analysis of the strengths, bright spots, and areas for improvement. That would be yielded in the short-term and long-term recommendations. You can see the areas of focus on the right-hand side, typical areas, but again, we would work with you all to understand which of these areas of focus do we need to modify? Do we need to add an area? Do we need to think about how we might layer in something around chronic absenteeism, for example, across all of these? Because we know that's not just about getting kids to school, but it's about the academics and engaging them. So that could sit across many of these focus areas. So these focus areas really represent subcommittees of people that would be digging deeply into your data, analyzing the 90-day recommendations from the superintendent, and providing you all with an objective view of here's how we see MCPS. That would feed then stage 2. And stage 2 is this leadership structure and organizational alignment. Based on those recommendations, what is the system currently set up to do well? What is it in need in terms of different structures, processes within the organization? Some of these might be data and accountability. Some of these may be sort of just thinking about the cross-collaboration opportunities between departments. Those are the types of things that we surface here in stage 2 based on the short-term and long-term recommendations in stage 1. You can see that we think about your current structure. We clarify leadership ownership. Is there clarity around who owns these major pieces of work? That is a really important question. When we get to the strategic plan, if there's not clarity of ownership, then it's not clear on who owns the priorities and goals moving forward. Certainly the superintendent and the board does, but who on staff? And so that's what this leadership ownership question is designed to really elicit. Is that clarity there? How do we get it even crisper? Design the new organizational structure based on what we learned through those first 2 parts, and then identify champions. Who are the right champions for this work moving forward? What's the structure need to look like in order to enable success of these short-term and long-term recommendations? That's stage 2. Stage 3 is strategic planning. And so here, strategic planning, we anticipate would, in our timeline, work from September to January. First, that's really important because as a board, you would expect your strategic plan then done within this process to be done by the time you enter budget season, before you start really deeply analyzing the budget resources that you need to allocate, not just for next year, the next school year, but for many years. What are some sustainable things that we need to do? We've recently engaged in a lot of zero-based budget work with districts across the country, and what we're learning is that the first thing that district divisions and districts say to us is we didn't have as much clarity around our priorities. We may have had a strategic plan, but it wasn't super clear what our goals were, and therefore the resource allocation around zero-based budgeting was really difficult. The second thing we've learned in zero-based budgeting, and we would bring this into our strategic planning process, which is why I'm digging a little bit into it with you, is that figuring out cost equivalence is really important. How much does one intervention program cost relative to another, relative to a high dosage tutoring program or paradigm? The way that we can understand that is to understand what's the per unit cost of each of those items. How much does it cost per student? We'll bring that expertise and that sort of lens into the strategic planning process with you so that by the time you get to priorities and goals in your strategic plan, we will have already thought about that to set you up for really successful implementation of your goals. What the process looks like is that we start with context and not assumptions, and I've talked a lot about that already. What's your context in terms of current resource allocation? What are your current initiatives? What are the things that you're moving forward? What needs to continue? What could we stop? We'll think about how we engage authentically. So this process is about engaging not just staff. Our strategic planning process is not just written by staff, the strategic plan, but it includes community focus groups, several rounds of those focus groups where we're not asking in the front end the same questions that we've already asked them because we know that your superintendent has done a 90-day listening tour. We know that the transition team dug into some of those questions, and we want to avoid survey fatigue. We want to avoid engagement fatigue because we want authentic engagement here. And so how we do that is we develop a draft set of priorities and goals with staff and with the steering committee, and we put those in front of the community and say, can you see yourselves in these goals? Do these compel you? Do they excite you about the vision and the direction of the district? That's what authentic engagement looks like for us in our process. And it, early in the process, engages the community in understanding the direction that the district is moving before the strategic plan is approved. So they feel that they have more agency and voice in that process. We build a focused and realistic plan with you. So all of the analysis we've done with the transition team and your org structure analysis help us understand what is the system capable of doing and what is it not capable of doing yet. We don't want to set goals, for example, that say 100% of your third graders will be reading proficiently in the next 5 years if we know that you've gotten very incremental improvement over the last 5 years. That doesn't mean we can't be ambitious. We should be ambitious, but we should also be realistic. And so it's finding that balance. And that's what we do in building this focused, realistic plan. It also includes a phased implementation. So if you have 5 priorities and 20 goals, not all of those will be implemented in year 1. Which of those can be 1, 2, and 3 in each of those successive years? And then we turn strategy into action. And here's where the org structure analysis comes back. We identify champions for each of these goals. And we ask those champions to not do all of the work, but to move that work forward. And so we're really enabling and empowering different staff members to do this work collectively, not just by themselves, but cross-functionally. So that's what our process looks like. We have some samples of our work. Again, we included those just for you to be able to look at your leisure, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Jason is just a plethora of information on this. I get excited every time I hear him dig into this, and I get to hear the feedback from everybody. Did you all get a chance to look at the strategic plans? Any questions? Anything that you're excited about? Chance for you all to engage.
Ms. Franklin?
So when you talked about per unit costs, when you're looking at programs and how that can affect your budget, what I am envisioning is, oh, this is cheaper, so let's use it. But this program is going to service our students better.
Yeah.
So how does that play into the process?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We look at multiple options. And so what I think is important is that you understand not only what's cheaper, but what's most effective as well, because cheap may not be effective. And so we look at not only the cost per unit, that helps us just compare apples to apples, but then what kind of results are each of those interventions getting in different settings? Settings like yours, with students like yours. And so that's an important part of the analysis that we would bring into the strategic planning process. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Board members, other questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so student voices are very important in this process. How are those incorporated?
Another great question.
Yeah, we envision that student voice would be in all of the stages. So stage 1 of the transition team, they would serve on the transition team. And certainly on the strategic planning focus groups, we focus group students. Many times students serve on a steering committee. So they're seeing the process unfold. We did Chapel Hills in North Carolina. There, Chapel Hill Carborough is the name of that district. Very similar to yours in terms of university context, a little bit larger, but university town, lots of different opinions in that town. And so students had a very, very important role on that particular steering committee. And I remember board members saying to me, and even some staff, we really appreciated the students' voice, and it actually changed some of the priorities that the superintendent and staff and ultimately board members were initially thinking about, because the students had said to them, our lived experience in this system doesn't reflect these goals. And so that had a huge voice. That's how we would envision bringing students into the process.
Board members, other questions? Yeah.
So just to follow up on that question, what grade level of students do you envision including in that process?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Middle school students and elementary school students in formal steering committees, they look at us with like deer in headlights oftentimes. Now, their voice is important. And so the way that we engage younger students, oftentimes, instead of doing a focus group with them, we'll go into their school. And with your permission, we'll ask, can we sit in a place where they're comfortable? Maybe it's the cafeteria, maybe it's the library, maybe it's going into their classrooms and just asking them, tell me about your school. Tell me what you love about your school. Tell me some of the things that you would hope and dream about in this school and in this division. And that's when those younger students really start opening up. High school students, we tend to bring on to some of the more formal focus groups and committees.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
presentation. Just a quick logistical question. So I'm phase one, there's stakeholder engagement and data review, but there's also the stakeholder engagement in phase three.
Yeah.
Can you help me to understand who are the stakeholders that would be engaged during the summer? Because that's what you have as phase one is during, because we're now at a school, and so can you fill in that gap for me?
Yeah, for sure. First, we made some assumptions about timeline that may not stand based on when we want to engage folks and their availability. So, for example, if stage one with transition team, we want to engage families for sure. We want to engage students. They may not be available during that time. And so we may want to start in September with the transition team process. We can make adjustments between September and January to make sure that we're still hitting that January deadline. The key difference in terms of stakeholders, there is some overlap. So you're right to notice that. So for example, students are engaged in the transition team, families are engaged in the transition team, staff is engaged in the transition team. Those same stakeholders are engaged in the strategic plan. The purpose of each of those engagements is slightly different. The purpose in the first engagement is to really unpack what's working, what's going well, how does that lead to recommendations. The purpose in stage three is to then translate that into action. And so the lens becomes a little different. There are some different stakeholders as well between stage one and stage three. Typically, one key difference is we like to bring in superintendents from other divisions, for example, in stage one. We tend to not do that in stage three when we're doing strategic planning. Why do we do that? Because we think that lens is helpful to just give us a perspective that when we're in our own picture, it's hard to see the picture. And so in the transition team process, it provides a more objective view of what that picture really looks like. And so we bring in folks outside of the division, not just community members, but other role-alike folks. So superintendents from other divisions, research and policy experts from across the country, folks who really deeply understand science of reading, for example, that have a national lens on that and could add value to recommendations in the transition team. They then, those national experts, for example, superintendents from divisions, stop the work in stage one. They turn that over to then more internally, the community, in stage three in the strategic planning process.
I think just to add to that too, we also have all the 90-day data that was collected, and so that will be deeply reviewed during the summer months. That was part of the vision for the time, because there's already stakeholder voice there. We don't want to go ask them again.
That's
right. So we have a lot of information that we'll be digging into with that.
Okay, thank you. Because one of the things that I heard, I was not involved in the development of the current strategic plan, was the importance of broad community engagement. And so I just didn't understand how that was going to work, because even in the description you just had that during that first phase is when you ask those questions about what's working, what's not working. Well, I think a number of members of our community who it sounds like are more phase three would want to be part of phase one, because that's why they would want to be engaged.
Yeah. I think we absolutely could involve them in both phases, but if we want to involve them earlier in phase one, then we would. I'll harken back to my earlier statement when I opened up that every process looks a little unique and is a little different. I think this is a really good example of, for MCPS, how we would customize our process with you. There's overlap in stage one and stage three of community members necessarily, but we also want to be really clear. Are we asking different questions in those two phases so that they don't feel like we're just using their time, that they're wasting their time? And so that's what we're trying to get at, is the clarity of purpose in each of those phases. There may be similar members that operate in those two phases, specifically community members in this case. You're welcome.
Okay. Board members, any other questions? Dr. Roundtree?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Great. Our next presentation is also related to the strategic plan process. Dr. Kevin Kastner and Dr. Wayne Harris with Cambridge Strategic Services will begin their presentation on a strategic plan process proposal. Thank you both for being here this evening.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, it's a pleasure to stand before you one more time. Everything that Dr. Kastner and I do to facilitate the strategic plan beginning 26 going forward for 5 years is based on a clear understanding of the need to have stakeholder-driven planning. So from the moment we began, it includes the voices of everyone in this community, school division, community, throughout. Montgomery County Public Schools is known for a commitment to excellence, innovation, and collaboration. Dr. Kastner and I pledge to you right now going forward that we will facilitate the development of your plan by a broad-based strategic planning team who will develop a shared vision that includes learning experiences and activities that will positively impact each and every student in each and every classroom to prepare them to make something of themselves. The words of Jesse P. Jones, my third grade teacher. And so you can count on everything that we do, that it will be to ensure that the plan that you receive will be inspiring, challenging, innovative, and will excite students to want to be here, to learn to be the best that they can be. So let's just a brief review of why strategic planning. You already know this, but it's worth repeating. First and foremost, to engage the community to create a shared vision. Those voices are important to gain public support so that there will be an inspiring learning activity for each and every child, each and every day. The strategic plan allows you to review what you're currently doing to make sure that we abandon those things that prepared students yesterday, to get rid of status quo thinking and to be creating, not predicting the future. That will allow you to have informed decisions about how you use your resources. And most of all, to give you direction, to provide direction for teaching and learning so that each and every student will be prepared for success in the global economy. The most critical part of developing your next strategic plan is that there is a triangle of support, that it's home, school, and community all working together to ensure that what happens for every student is what they need to be the best they can be. Dr. Kastner will describe the process in detail so that it's clear what you can expect from our facilitation of your next strategic plan.
Good evening, everybody. You have our proposal, which you see is very detailed. We intend only to do Reader's Digest here this evening, but there is a lot of the data involved with that. One of the things that we think is really important is the superintendent experience that Wayne and I have. We've done over 50 plans. Each of them are probably a little bit different. But when we're working with different groups, the way that we can engage in some of listening and in questioning, we get to the point of how's this all going to fit in with the implementation with the school board so that the strategic plan becomes the umbrella for everything you do in your system. That anything that goes through your budget is going to be driven by your strategic plan. You have before you a 14-step process that's been around since at least 30 years. And the 14-step process, while it's linear, it also gets into the most important part, and that's into the implementation. The whole development of the plan in the first several months, maybe 6, 7 months, leading into the implementation is going to go into the following school year. And eventually, it's going to have some of the budget implications that you can do in transition, but also what you're going to want to do because of some of the things that you want to do for your children and the successes that they should have. So I'm going to first start out with the readiness. If you could click there, Wayne. You start out by trying to build capacity. By building capacity, we're talking about a stage in which you want to engage staff, leader. We would talk to a lot of the members of the cabinet, have the principals and everybody involved to understand how their role in a strategic plan is going to play out. At the same time, when we're doing that, would have a community summit. In the community summit, we're going to be asking a lot of questions from your community, and we're going to be taking a lot of the information from those questions and put it in a vital signs document. We have the benefit of having done your recent superintendent search. If you recall, we had over 225 stakeholders involved in that. We had over 4,000 survey responses. Most pertinent was the fact that we had a record for us, over 2,000 students. All of that student data is going to become critical. In fact, it really did influence some things that we think will be coming into the strategic plan. One being the students' feeling about wellness. That whole issue maybe might not have been here when we did the last plan, which was in the middle of COVID, and we were just trying to figure things out. If any of you remember that. We actually had tables moved pretty far away from each other when we were doing that. So we have that benefit, but we also then have the superintendent's benefit. This happened, and Kelly is aware that when we did this in Spotsylvania, the superintendent did a similar thing of learning information from the community, and then you have that information to engage in the plan, which is another outreach of people that are going to be engaging as ambassadors in your system. So in that capacity place, we're pretty much, you can go ahead and go to this thing, we're pretty much setting the stage, but we're adding a component that frankly I've talked to your previous superintendent about, but we never got to it, a comprehensive review. We need to do a review over what's happening in the last 5 years. And we need to work with staff, and we actually will use a rubric to see what are the things that have been implemented and to what degree and fidelity that they either have accomplished what they were intended or they show that there's work yet to be done. Some of this might even include achievement data on achievement gaps. But this comprehensive review, we have added that, and I think it helps the strategic planning team have a great context that when they purposely put together their mission statement and getting into their objectives and their strategies, it's going to be driven with this whole idea in a comprehensive way of knowing where you've been, where you are, because if you don't start with that, you're not going to be able to do a very good job of where you want to go. And that information is critical. So once we get through that whole issue of the stage of readiness, we go to the second part. And this gets into the actual design. As you'll note, we have 25, 30 members of the community that will be on the strategic planning team. We think the succinctness of having that group, that they have all of the information that they'll be compiling. We're going to have at least, we've usually been going from 4 to 6 students. We want 2 board members, but at least 50% should be non-staff. It should be people that are twofers and threefers. Someone that have kids in the school, might be part of the Chamber of Commerce, might be in some of the church groups. Carefully figuring out who those people might be can be very important in that process. And the idea that this would be transparent, that the work they would be doing would be posted on your website, and you would continue to be able to get community input along the way, because this is a draft plan as it starts. It'll stay a draft plan until the superintendent presents it to the board, and then it's the board and the superintendent's that will be doing it, and that will help your direction as you're getting into your priorities, even into the next school year when you get into implementation. One of the things that's important when we have this steering committee, and you have these people that have the information all before them, they have the opportunity of collecting all the vital signs. Every decision is not made by a vote. It's made by agreement. 100% of the people on the team have to agree. We have found that it takes longer doing this, but the investment is far more beneficial in that no one can say, well, I didn't agree with that. In that process, when it comes back to the board, you know that you have that type of support and agreement in the product that you'll be looking at. And as you're looking through that, you're looking at the steps that will be in the plan. There's many things that will be developed. You're talking about developing a belief system. You're talking about parameters, a mission statement. You're talking about objectives, which start out each student will, because that makes it student-centered. And then you're talking about strategies. If we're talking about each student will, how will they accomplish this in a strategy? And then you're going to be using action verbs. And when you're getting into that blue section, that will become a draft plan that will then be taken over by not the 30 people, but probably by 100, 150, 200 more people that will be on the action teams. Your action teams, again, are going to have a representation of the community and also of staff. And the step in the action team process, go ahead and get the next slide here. They're going to have the benefit of the analysis and the external factors of the plan. Next slide, please. And when they get into the action team work, there's 5 stages. And one of the key stages in the action team work is research and development. That over a period of probably 3 months, people will be surveying anything that talks about good programs across the country and see which ones might be beneficial to Montgomery County. It'll be driven by the mission statement and what you're trying to accomplish. And during that R&D work, which might also involve members perhaps going in and doing a day in the school, looking what's happening with your students, getting into the idea of bringing in special community people, bringing in also the fact we'd want to involve any of the support systems and the stakeholder groups that would be critical to that objective and strategy. And when they're going through this whole process, we also want to talk about abandonment. There's certain things that aren't working as well as we thought they might. So this group has the benefit of that. But when they get involved in doing the action plans themselves, we attach a cost-benefit analysis. Well, what's it going to cost, and is it going to be worth doing? When you get into that idea, then it becomes, this isn't just a wish list. we know that you're not going to have a windfall in your budget. So a lot of this means maybe restructuring some of your priorities and figuring out which one might be more important on the key results that you want to have, that you're working for your students and children. Also the fact, and as you know, in each community, there's always sub-communities, and you have your share here, whether it's Christiansburg or Blacksburg. This equity issue of how equity follows in this is important. It was important in your last plan, it will be important in this next plan. Because what you're talking about, you want to be able to have each student have the benefit of the type of support and programs that are going to help them be successful, as well as the support that you want to have with those families. So all this in the action planning process really is engaging even a much larger group of people. And again, it's a group that also will end up being investing into when you implement the plan. And when you implement the plan, then you're going to have whoever it is through the superintendent, you will have key leaders that will be responsible. And as they are responsible for the implementation of the plan, and it becomes part of their evaluation, then they're going to have skin in the game, in the sense that through a process of watching the implementation and reporting regularly to the board, you're going to watch the progress of your plan evolve, not just through your first year, but over a 5-year period, that you should be continuing to review it and making adjustments as data would suggest. Next slide, please. When you're getting into the implementation, this was not as strong a point for Cambridge until I became the president, and I believe that the implementation is where we have a critical impact. We want to keep an eye on things. We want to see the type of data. We would like to see annual reviews. We would like to see the adjustment, and we'd like to keep the community and the board with the superintendent watching how this thing works over time. Our strategic plans in any of the districts we work do not sit on a shelf. They're viable, they're part of a culture and the DNA of a district. The district that implements a strategic plan is no longer the same district anymore. Even a district as yours, that you have many successes, you're still trying to build on them. And even as you go in and you change superintendents, new board, you're working again on the priorities. Each of you were elected to represent your community. When you're out there, you've heard voices, and now in your role as board members working with the superintendent, now you're trying to move this forward to make this the type of place that people want to come to live, people want to work here, because you have the vitality, and you also have the idea that you're not just going to be a status quo district. You're always going to try to move forward. And that's the reputation you enjoy, but you have to earn that each year. Next slide, please. When we're going into the steps, we could tinker with the timeline, but the best time to start this is in the fall, when you have everybody back in school. Probably after school starts, then we're going to be involved in the engagement. At that point, we probably are talking about October, November, the strategic planning team working. You're talking about the action plan working probably January through March. You're talking about bringing it back before the end of the budget, because it might have some impact, but we also want to make sure that we have the type of impact on the action teams that they could successfully do their job. Action teams usually meet 25, 30 hours over that period, so there's a real investment there. Next slide, please. The whole idea of looking at this and the community engagement, it's an investment. One of the things you'll notice in our proposal, even though we've added the comprehensive review and everything, we're sticking with the fee we did 5 years ago. And we're doing that because we feel a commitment to this system. And so we're trying to make it cost beneficial for you, but also there's going to be a tremendous amount of work that will probably involve over 200 people, will probably involve over 2,000, 2,500 hours. All these people doing this because they believe in your county and they want to be invested. And also the fact that they become ambassadors to the implementation and support of the plan, just as they become ambassadors as you have a new superintendent in moving the system forward to the next step. So I want to make sure I'm within the time. How am I doing, Tosh? Am I close? We would like to be happy to answer any questions, but first, Wayne, is there anything else you'd like to add?
We'll answer your questions.
Board members, would anyone like to start with questions?
I don't have any questions, but I will say you guys really hit a lot of high notes there for me. I really appreciated that you've got equity that you brought up. We've got a good cost analysis or cost benefit analysis, and you spelled out for us really what kind of hours we're looking at total that would go into this project. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Other board members? No? Ms. Franklin?
So I do like the follow-up and coming back in and having another set of eyes, even though they're the same sets, but looking at what was said we want to accomplish and making sure we're headed in the right directions and helping us with that. So I really like that piece.
Dr. Roundtree?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just ask the same questions that I asked to the other team. How will you go about reaching out to students, and what levels of students do you anticipate reaching out to?
Go ahead, Wayne.
It's Dr. Gimple and whomever he chooses to help put together the team. And so he will decide what level of students and how many. We hope to have 4 to 6 students on this team. And he would reach out and put that team together. And then that team, including the students, would be 25 to 30 individuals make up from the community, half from the community, half from the school division. And we would meet 3 days. And it would be during those 3 days that the team would put together the draft. We would facilitate that, the draft of the parts of the plan, starting with the beliefs, the mission, the parameters, the objectives, the strategies. And then the action team would be developed and would then take the draft plan and create the plans and the steps over the course of about 2 months, bring those plans and steps back to the team for their approval, meaning that the team believes that the plans and steps will in fact allow, upon implementation, the reaching of the mission. That's essentially the process.
One of the things, when you're talking about the action teams, let's say, for example, there's a question about transitions. There always is in the system when you're going from elementary to the middle school to the high school. If you get involved with that, you're going to have to talk to the children and the staff as you make those transitions to get the input as needed, depending on what the strategy or the objective might be. So it will be driven by almost a need. If you've got some issues, then if you're going to solve them, you've got to have the right people that we're getting input from that are going to be affected. We're not going through this as we did several years ago, whether it's a start time, this start time or that start time. We've gone through that. But the fact is, you have to have input on how it's going to affect the people. So what you want to make sure is when the superintendent brings a strategic plan back to the board after all this is accomplished, that you have it driven by the people that are the owners and the stakeholders of that, so that you can have that benefit. The one thing about a strategic plan is you're trusting, you as a board and a superintendent, not to come in and say, we're doing this top down. You want this to be stakeholder driven. You want it to be driven bottom up in that sense. And that's where you get the type of ownership and commitment, and also the type, we believe, of trust you build in the transparency that you have to the fact that when you're getting into the point and you have tight budgets, people know that you're doing your homework and there's a reason for what you're trying to do. So that's where this combination of the board trusting with the superintendent to develop it, because in the end, it comes back to the board and the superintendent, and you will be driving that as you go into your priorities for your school year and also how you're doing it as an umbrella for everything you have in the budget. That's why this type of strategic plan has great benefit to the districts that we've been working in. And I just welcome you to call any of the places, talk to board members, talk to the superintendents, and you can see that's the whole key of this, the ownership. Other questions?
Board members, other questions?
Well, speaking for Wayne and myself, we'd love to continue to work with you. We've enjoyed working with your district, and I think you've got another great momentum going for you. We hope we can be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is a first read of our title grant applications review. The federal program applications for Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV are available for review and first read. They'll be brought back on the June 16th, 2026 meeting for approval. Emily Altizer, Administrator of Federal Programs, ESL, and Preschool, is available for questions if needed. This is a first read and no action is expected. Ms. Altizer, do you want to tee us off in any way, or?
I don't have a presentation or anything this evening, but I can say that the federal applications are very similar to what they were last year. The majority of the funding in these applications are spent on salary, as you probably have seen as you review. And you know, as we continue to have salary increases and our federal grant applications haven't been increased, the salary keeps absorbing more of the grant.
Board members, are there any questions?
Thank you so much. I just, one question, then a comment. I noticed that of the 4 documents that we received, the Title IV, there was very little in that document compared to the others. Just curious. I wonder, I was like, what's going on here? Am I missing something?
You're not missing anything. That is correct, and that is because we transfer all of the funds from Title IV to Title I to help cover the cost of the salaries. So the total cost of that Title IV grant is transferred into Title I, and it will cover 1.5 salary positions.
Okay, great. The only other thing I'll add is my compliments on the thoroughness of the grant applications. I've seen, I remember, was it last year, the year before? At some point, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I remember going to the superintendent, like, there's so little in here. So my compliments on the thoroughness of these applications. Thank you.
Board members, any other questions? Dr. Roundtree?
Oh, thank you all for putting it together. Nothing at this time.
Ms. Altizer, I just have a quick question that's not necessarily about the application, but just the grants themselves. Was there a delay in receiving funds for them last year, or has that been a pattern?
There was. It's not really been a pattern. Last year was an unusual pattern under the Trump administration. There was a little bit of a freeze on the funds, but then they were released shortly thereafter. They weren't frozen very long.
And has there been any communication this year that that might be similar, or, you know, if there might be kind of an impact on
I have
our
not
school
heard
budget?
anything. We have our monthly office meetings, office hour meetings, and I have not heard any inclination of a delay this year. The only thing I have heard is that we are going to receive all grant funds for all 4 grants as we are supposed to, but there is speculation that in 27, 28, we may not receive our Title III funds. They may be absorbed in other grants. But that's speculation.
I really appreciate the extra information just to help with planning potentially. Board members, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Altizer.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, our next agenda item is a strategic plan update, and Dr. Amanda Widener, Assistant Superintendent, will begin our presentation. Thank you, Dr. Widener.
This will be a team effort. Good evening, Chair Purcell, school board members, and Dr. Gimple. As we wrap up the conclusion of our current strategic plan, which was implemented in 2021 and is concluding now, we felt this was an opportune time for us to review kind of the framework of that plan and some of the progress that we have made. I think this will be important information for us to reflect on as we get ready to embark on a new process to develop a plan for the next 5 or 6 years. I'm just going to give you a review of information that you already may be familiar with, but I think this is important because the mission and objectives and beliefs have really been the framework for the work that we've done over the last 6 years. As you've heard from our presenters tonight, developing a strategic plan is a very collaborative process, and this current plan was based on input from a lot of stakeholders. So a lot of voices were utilized to develop our current mission statement. So the mission statement, really kind of defines who we are, states our values, and identifies the purpose of the work that we do. Within the mission statement, we have our beliefs, and our beliefs really specify what those values are. And we are reminded of those because they are shared by our student representatives at each of our school board meetings. These are hung in all of our classrooms and all of our schools. So really they have been a guide for us to help unify the work that we've done as a school division. Within that framework, there are also boundaries that help guide the work that we do. So reminding us that, all decisions are supposed to serve the needs and best interests of our students is an important principle there. And then underneath, this all serves as an umbrella for we have had 5 focus areas over the last 6 years. So the first focus area was instruction. And under instruction, we identified specific goals related to things that would support and enhance learning. So we had goals related to lesson planning, professional development, engagement, and then also in supporting our staff efforts to recruit and retain highly effective teachers. The second focus area focused on learning environments, our efforts to provide safe and vibrant spaces to support learning for our students. In trying to be inclusive and look at the needs of serving all of our students, we had a focus area on poverty. And so by having a focus area on poverty, this really helped us evaluate our resources to make sure that we were addressing the whole student and making sure we had things in place to support not just their academic needs, but also their social and emotional needs. Paralleling with this was a focus area on equity. And again, in our efforts to serve all of our students, we wanted to make sure that we had goals that aligned to providing access to resources, programs, and opportunities for every student. And then finally, as we heard in the process of developing the plan and listening to the needs of our students, mental health became the 5th focus area. Because again, in addressing the needs of students, it's not just about meeting their academic needs, but also understanding their social and emotional needs, and as well as that of staff, and putting in place resources and programs that can support those. So we are going to have members of the team who will kind of give you an overview on some of the major accomplishments that we've made in those areas. In instruction, Dr. Ann Mitchell will talk about some of our accomplishments that are tied to the goals in instruction for curriculum. Dr. Brewster and I will look at what we have done in the area of retention and recruitment. In learning environments, Dr. Mike Brown will talk about the work that was done there. In the area of poverty, Paige Walters and Emily Altizer will give you an overview of the accomplishments. In the area of equity, Stacy Wright and Helen Fotinos will provide information. And then on mental health, Jason Gerritsen and Jane Greeno will speak to you about that. So Ann Mitchell will begin with instruction.
Good evening, Dr. Gimple, Board Chair, Board members. On behalf of the Curriculum and Instruction team, we are very proud of our major accomplishments so far. With our strategic plan, we created a division-wide PD plan. And we also provide some professional development for evidence-based practices. And one good thing that came through this, we allowed teachers and administrators to work alongside with each other, and they were able to go back into the schools and present some of this information out to other teachers. We were excited about standards-based grading as we expanded from kindergarten through second grade up to third grade. And for our instructional focus, we did a professional learning to support teachers on lesson planning and the components of an effective lesson plan. We have focused on engaging qualities, special design instruction, and we have incorporated high-quality instructional materials for ELA and math. Additionally, one of our processes, we want to make sure after we did these professional developments, we wanted to make sure that it was consistent throughout the division. So as a part of that, we implemented and integrated in our evaluation tool, like when we do our learning walks, when principals do those learning walks, we incorporate a component to focus on those engaging qualities in special design instruction. And with that, principals were able to give teachers feedback. And we are proud to say that now we definitely have high-quality instructional materials in K through 12 in ELA and math. So we're very proud of the core curriculum work that we have there and our core programs there. So for the future, we still want to work more with our homework and grading practices, and we want to make sure those are evidence-based practices. And for our future, all strategies and initiatives that we are doing, we want to make sure it's aligned with the strategic plan. We communicate that message to make sure that our students and our teachers are getting what they need. Thank you.
As I said, the other major component of the instruction objective related to recruitment and retention. And we had kind of 3 action plans here. One was related to implementing an extensive onboarding program, coming up with efforts to create competitive pay scales so that we could recruit highly qualified staff, and then also using similar measures to make sure that we were retaining our highly qualified staff. So to that end, some of the major accomplishments that we gained over the past few years is that we did work collectively. Again, this was the work done between HR, the finance department, collaboration with the MCA and the superintendent to compress our salary scales and to make our salary scales more competitive. We have greatly enhanced our benefits package, which has become one of the most attractive features for new people looking at our school division. We've added dental insurance to our health insurance plan. We have managed to not raise the employee cost for health insurance. And we've also expanded the number of employees, our support staff, who have VRS benefits. So those are all ways that we've put things in place to help recruit and retain highly qualified staff. To that end, we have seen improvement in the numbers. We've been able to fill our rates significantly higher than the state average. So each year we do a position exit collection report, which is an extensive report about our vacancies and when they are filled. And when you look at our vacancy rate for teachers compared to other parts of the state, we are well above the state average. So that's a metric that shows that we're moving in the right direction. As part of the induction process, we have expanded and really maintained a robust mentoring program for our certified staff. And our certified staff who are involved in that program, our mentees, complete a mentee survey every year. And so we've learned from those surveys that is a support measure that's important. And we would like to look in the future to expand that to our classified staff. We have gone to efforts to do more early hiring, and some of that has included extending job fairs in the fall and reaching out to our local universities so we can tap into our nearby student teachers. And lastly, when we look at our exit rates, we have seen that there has been a steady decline in exits over the last 3 years.
As Dr. Widener mentioned just a few moments ago, our vacancy rates consistently are lower than others across the state. That means that we start the school year with fewer vacancies than most of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the other 132 divisions. A couple of things that our data points out is the number of teachers who are actually returning back to Montgomery County after leaving, finding out that the grass is not greener on the other side, that we're watering our lawn here in Montgomery County Public Schools. So we're excited about the investment that the board has made in salaries and benefits that have allowed us over the past few years to hire and fill some very difficult positions, particularly in the area of classified, in our classified employee, among our classified employees. I will also draw your attention to custodial fill rates because that's something relatively new. Last year, we seemed to be hovering around in the 80%, late 80s in terms of fill rates. This year, we are consistently at 95% for our fill rates for custodial positions, and certainly that has a lot to do with salary and benefits and structure. In terms of future planning, what we would like to do particularly with recruitment and retention next time is to integrate the equity department into our retention team, and so we can work as partners to increase the number of minority hires for the school system. Also, we'd like to do more intentional student recruitment, and we're not talking about recruiting students out of college. We're talking about recruiting them in high school from the time that they start their academic and career plan in 7th grade, getting them thinking about the teaching profession and what it would take in order to go that route and follow that pathway. That includes continuing our partnerships with their local community college, Radford University, Virginia Tech, and all of our surrounding colleges that send students back home to us. One of the other things we're very excited about is the future of data and being able to bring the board more data with regards to not only our analytics related to recruitment and retention, but also being able to break down jobs and race so we can determine what our true exit rates are among all of our teachers and classified staff. Finally, one of the things that we're also excited about is making it easier to apply for Montgomery County Public Schools. That's very important to us. While we're out on the road and we're recruiting, is that we have a QR code with a simplistic application system so that individuals can use their smartphones to apply and have an easier application process by which they're accessing in order to apply for a school system.
Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Gempel, just want to offer some information on our learning environment. One of our major accomplishments, and I want to recognize this, is our renovations and additions to CES, CPS, and BES, and soon to CHS, even though it doesn't fall under the current strategic plan, but it will be finished soon. Also, our master's facility plan incorporated some best practices for safety and security by engaging some committees and experts in the field. Our data highlights in progress, one of the things that we accomplished under our current plan was the completed MR Fix-It plan. That is actually for the VDOE, and it is a detailed accounting of all of our facilities with a host of information in there that is very beneficial to both us and the VDOE. That was completed. Also, our facilities assessment was completed in February of 2026, which allowed us to kick off our capital improvement plan that we're currently engaged in. And also, we worked on streamlining our process to get information out to the public on how they could use our facilities. Insights for our future planning. We have determined that our capital plan is an ongoing document that needs to be reviewed every year, and our goal is to review that and have it information ready by October, so when we start budget season, we can have some accurate information to present to the board and to the county as we move forward with our facility needs. Also, we have determined in the future that we need to incorporate our technology representatives in that discussion as we plan major renovations and/or additions, just to incorporate, make sure we have everything in there for our technology. Also, we need to, as part of our facilities plan, we reviewed all of our ADA accommodations at our schools, and there are recommendations, or will be recommendations in there to bring everything up to current ADA standards as per the requirements of the state. Also, we recommend that our strategic plan be reviewed at a minimum on an annual basis as we go forward. That also, our strategic plan is a living document as well and needs to be reviewed accordingly. Thank you.
So Paige and I are going to tag team on this area of poverty. So we have a few major accomplishments in the area of poverty. And one of our major accomplishments is a single point entry system for preschool applications. So that actually happened this school year. We have been working through EO, and EO, if you don't know what that is Endless Opportunities. It is the area that holds our Ready region in Southwest Virginia. And we were able to begin the single point entry through a platform called School Mint. Any family in the New River Valley now will only apply for preschool in one application platform. And then that application platform, they put in their address. It then puts their application to the school or the area of where they want to attend preschool. So that's a really, really good accomplishment. We also have expanded our preschool program, and we have expanded and added 2 3-year-old classrooms. These 2 classrooms, one is in Blacksburg, one is in Christiansburg, Price's Fork Elementary School in Blacksburg and Christiansburg Primary School. Each of these classrooms have anywhere from 10 to 12 3-year-old children in them, and a teacher and a teacher assistant. I'm going to let Paige move on to free breakfast.
And hi, I'm Paige Walters. I'm the McKinney-Vento liaison, and if you're not sure what that is, I work with all the families experiencing homelessness in our division. I also work with foster care families. So a couple other major accomplishments we're really proud of is during last academic year, we implemented the universal free breakfast for all the students, and that has resulted in a 40% increase in breakfast participation this year. Along with that, we also have the 7 schools that are part of the community eligibility provision, which extends free lunch to those 7 schools. And then you've heard about our summer feeding program. We have expanded that to about 4 programs that we are going to have this summer. We promote Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, which is a book gifting program that sends free books to families age appropriate who register, and they get them every month from birth until 5. In collaboration with the previous administration and the school board, MCPS assumed my salary for the McKinney-Vento position, which freed up grant money for direct student services. And this decision also enabled us in the hiring of our first social worker in many years, whose primary responsibility is direct engagement with students and their families, which has been extremely helpful. We've also really expanded and strengthened our community partnerships. We've delivered formal presentations to various civic groups and religious organizations that have successfully secured donations and financial donations as well as other donations. We've cultivated robust collaborative relationships with key regional stakeholders, and we've maintained active representation on various boards and committees, which has really brought MCPS into broader community service framework. And we have many examples of different ways that we've partnered with community partners to help our families. We also joined Care Portal this year, just in the last couple months, which is a platform that connects local churches and agencies and organizations to meet the real immediate needs of students and families in our school systems. All of our school counselors were trained on this, and they're able to put in needs that our families have. Anything, we've had needs already from gas cards to paying for a summer school class, rent, things like that go into the system, and then different organizations and church organizations or community organizations can pick up those needs and pay for them. And since this slide was created, we also began a partnership with Souls for Souls, which partners with schools across the United States, and they provide brand new athletic shoes to children experiencing homelessness. And so we have 150 pairs of shoes being delivered to us in June that we're going to be able to give out to under-resourced children.
So moving on to our data highlights and progress. I'm very excited to talk about the highlight of the expansion of the 3-year-old program into our 2 schools. I wish that we had it in more schools, but right now, I mean, that's actually a big progress for us. This program really has provided more services to more families. It's not just providing services to children, it really is providing services to the families. So it's providing more services to the families. We have also been told by the schools, the principals themselves have said that Prices for Work specifically has said that their children going into kindergarten are way ready for kindergarten than students who have not attended a 3-year-old program. So they've been in a 3-year-old program, they move into the 4-year-old program, and then they move into kindergarten. And we're hoping that we'll see that next year at Christiansburg Primary School. They have actually seen the same thing within their 4-year-old program, but their children moving into the kindergarten will be the first group going into kindergarten this coming year.
We also increased identification of our McKinney-Vento students, which might not sound like a good thing because we have more of them, but it actually is, because it means that we're getting the training out there for schools to be able to identify the families that might be experiencing homelessness. We went from 188 students last year to 200, and we ended this year with 205 students. We've also been able to increase our transportation of McKinney-Vento students. Last year, the division transported 57 students. We transported 53 students this year, but we spent about $11,000 in gas cards last year, reimbursing families for transportation, and we're up to almost $14,000 this year. Which leads into some of the insights for future planning. That transportation piece and our homelessness families, that we don't see that decreasing in the future. And we are really tapped out when it comes to transportation for these families. We have 2 McKinney-Vento vans that we were able to purchase through grants that we have specifically for this, but those vans also take other families, and we're really just kind of maxed out with that. As well as we're seeing the major difference that our one social worker that's actually working directly with students is doing, and so there really is a need for more social workers to help our families that are experiencing poverty.
And lastly, we're not going to stop with the 2 classrooms that we have for 3-year-old. We want to definitely keep working on expansion and move that into other schools. Through the 3-year-old program, it's a competitive grant, and so I've already applied for that this year. And right now, I've asked. Hopefully, we can maybe get 5 more spots that we can possibly put down in the Eastmont elementary school area. So hopefully we'll get that grant. We won't know till July 1, so we'll see. And then also with our single point entry, next year the plan is to move that whole single point entry into the whole Southwest Virginia. So it will not just be the New River Valley, it'll be single point entry for Southwest Virginia. So that's our plans, and we're excited about it.
Good evening, everyone. I am Stacy Wright, the Director of Equity and Diversity, and I have with me Helen Fontinos, who is the Administrator for Gifted Programs, and we're going to talk about our equity accomplishments this year. Or not this year, through the strategic plan. So one of the things that we're very proud of is that we created our equity statement and our equity principles. Our principles, which are impartiality, opportunity, access, and sense of belonging. These are the things that we use in our office to help guide the work that we do, to make sure that all of our students are engaged and feel like they are a part of the MCPS family. We've facilitated several professional developments for staff, and then we're also creating a list this year that we send out to principals to be able to talk about the things that they need in their schools. If it's more training on implicit bias or things like that, to help their students want to belong. If it's more things about sense of belonging and things like that, then our staff can get that and our principals can pick from a menu. We rebranded the Minority Retention Committee. We rebranded it to We Reach because we felt like calling it just the Minority Retention Committee, that many people thought that only minorities could help. But we look for allies. We look for people who want to support minorities in our division. This year we had a very successful Bowling for Belonging. Last year we had 2 cultural cafes that we did, and next year we plan to expand to do more. We launched the Discovery Program, so Helen is going to talk to us about that.
I know I've spoken to you before, but again, this year we had 100% participation in the first grade Discovery Program, where all first grade students were receiving higher level thinking and critical and creative thinking lessons in order to promote equity in the gifted identification process. And we successfully began that program with second grade at CPS, and we plan to expand that to all elementary schools next year.
You might as well talk about your AP.
Additionally, in an effort to increase access to AP and advanced courses, we have 4 new courses throughout the course of the strategic plan: AP African American Studies, DEAP Human Geography, DEAP Pre-Calculus, and DEAP Cybersecurity. The College Board labels these as Kickstarter APs, and so the purpose of those is to show students who may not think of themselves as an AP or DE student that they can participate in those classes, and so they're meant to be an entry into the AP world for all students.
And we've had a discipline matrix throughout the strategic plan, but it went up and down in how we were using it. In the last year, we've really figured out a way to consistently use the the discipline matrix in order to make sure that across the division that the things that our principals are doing are helping our students and helping us to decrease disproportionality in our discipline. For our highlights and progress, we've done book studies at 4 of our schools, 2 schools in Christiansburg, Shawsville, and then in Blacksburg. And 95 of our book study participants, which it talks about implicit bias and how that impacts us as educators as we are teaching our students and what we need to look for to make sure that all of our students are belonging. But 95 of our book study participants strongly agreed that they were equipped to now start to interrupt blind spots that they see. And that was in 2005 and 2026. 94 of our book study participants can identify personal and professional blind spots that they had and are constantly working on those things to make sure that all of our students feel a sense of belonging. You already did about the discovery, 100%. Yep, you did. All right. And so for future planning, we are talking about our discipline and continuing to decrease disproportionality. We know that that is still happening. It's a problem nationwide, but in Montgomery County, we really are looking at that. We did a book study with our principals to talk about how they can decrease it themselves by looking at themselves, taking a moment to think about where they're coming from when they are assigning discipline. The development, we are prioritizing professional development. Like those book study schools that we work with, we won't just work with them for this year. We continue each year by adding another component to make sure they're continuing to understand how we can better support our students. And then academics. Definitely, we are still working with the gifted office in order to address the representation of all of our students in AP and DE courses. And how do we start that earlier? And less of a tracking, but more of watching our students to see where they fit and where they could fit, and that they understand their whole career and academic process. And then lastly, we will continue to facilitate book studies throughout the 2026 and 2027 school year in order to make sure that our staff are equipped to support all students in Montgomery County. Oops.
Good evening. My name is Jane Greeno. I supervise school counselors in Section 504, and Jason, of course, Garrettson, you know. So as someone who's really passionate about mental health and recognizing how mental health plays such a huge, important part of a student being able to learn, I just want to commend the board for your support and commitment to mental health with our students and how you've allocated money towards that. And just really it being a major focus for us. And we've really tried to highlight that with our employees from the beginning of when they first come for an interview by incorporating mental health questions in our interviews. And it's kind of cute to see that because people are thrown off. They don't expect that. But we really want to send that message from the very beginning that we want you to think about mental health because it's going to be part of your classroom and part of your environment, and it's going to impact you. And so we also make sure that we do mental health on-board training with our new employees. We focus on mental health. We discuss it. When our new teachers come back, we'll have sessions on mental health so that they understand how students' mental health and their own mental health is impacting how they interact with their students. We also have annual training for our returning staff, and then we provide PD opportunities on every workday with a whole variety of mental health topics, trauma, different things like that teachers can sign up for. And it's not just teachers, our school resource officers, our support staff, anyone's welcome to go to those trainings. We also implemented a social emotional learning curriculum, and that has been a huge undertaking and I think has been really, really fantastic. Jason did such a great job of leading that group of stakeholders, and we reviewed multiple programs. And while no program is perfect, I'm really excited that we're talking about it. Our teachers are talking about it. Our students have access to that so that they understand that it's not an embarrassment to talk about your mental health, but it is a part of what makes us, and our experiences all impact us. And so those SEL programs are really fantastic because we are addressing that every day with students. And then we recognize that there's such a need for mental health, and I know you guys have heard that from our students. And so we've had to try to be really innovative to try to think about what are some ways that we can provide supports to our students and our staff that maybe look a little bit different than just your traditional school counselor. And some of those are in our data highlights and progress. I want to commend you all that Montgomery County is really a standout county, and that we have a 250-to-1 counselor to student ratio. That really is the standard that every division should have, but every division doesn't. And I'm in a lot of meetings with other leaders of school counseling throughout the state, and people are envious of us. So that's really amazing, your commitment to that, so thank you. And of course, we added the social worker, and Paige talked about that, and that has just been an invaluable asset to us, even in mental health, because as she works with her families, mental health is always going to be a part of what comes up, and it's something that she can connect those students and those families to different community resources. You also were wonderful in hearing the school counselors last year talk about 504 and how there was a desire to have that taken off of what they do with their time because the need for counseling is so great. And so you hired 3 504 coordinators, and I supervise those folks, and they are amazing, and it's really bringing a lot of continuity to our 504, Section 504, and the implementation of that. But we are seeing so many more students who have mental impairments of anxiety and depression that is really significantly impacting them. So I expect that as things continue in our society, that's going to probably continue, but we're having those coordinators that are there to help support that as well. We have daily SEL access for our K through 12 students. Our elementary schools use a program called Move This World, and teachers implement a lesson every day. It's already prepared for them. It's got a lot of movement, so it's really fantastic for elementary students, and it's really teaching them how to handle their emotions, how to recognize their emotion, name it and tame it, and it's all done with movement. And what I really love about it is because the teachers are implementing that, the teachers are learning how to manage their emotions and their strong feelings. Like, we all have had life experiences and traumas that impact us and the way that we react to other people. And so that's been a great program because it doesn't require a lot from the teacher, but it does allow them to grow and for them to constantly reinforce things in their classrooms with students when they see situations occur. And then for our middle school and high school students, we have a program called Ripple Effects, and that is something that they can do on their own, and they have access to that on their Chromebooks, and they can access that program anytime they want on the weekends. And there's a lot of topics there that they can go and explore and learn about. So really, really great. Of course, we continue to promote EAP, Employee Assistance Program, to our staff. That's a free program for them. We are not told who goes and accesses EAP services. So again, just trying to really say that there's no shame. We all have things that we're dealing with. Everybody needs help. And so we want to support that and have those resources. And then something that I'm just as excited about as the SEL is you guys have supported Gaggle Therapy and Gaggle Reach Out. Gaggle Therapy is, we partner with them, and we, counselors, can refer students to me, and then I refer to Gaggle Therapy, and they connect a student with a licensed Virginia therapist within 2 to 4 days. So we all know how long the waiting lists are to see a counselor, and so this is something that we can get immediate help for a family. The family is not billed. They're charged the same rate that you would be to see a private counselor, like $160 a session. They're charged for no-shows, so we have some parameters and expectations that we have for our students, but if a student has insurance, and they're still eligible, so there's nothing. So all students are available. That's available to all people. We don't advertise that to the population as a whole because we do have a very limited budget with that. But it is available. And I work really closely with school counselors so that they're aware of that, so that we can identify students that maybe can't access maybe our community services partners. And the great thing about Gaggle Therapy is they can meet with those counselors, therapists meet with students anytime that they need to. Sometimes it happens during the school day, most often not, but it can be on weekends and evening hours. So really, it's very accommodating. And then we also work with Gaggle Reach Out, and that is in our middle schools and our high schools, and it's a real-time crisis line. So a student can chat or email, text, call, and talk to someone who's been trained in helping with crisis. And the nice thing is they're connected to our school, so if we have someone that's in dire crisis, they can reach out to us. And so that's a little bit different than just a normal crisis line. So really excited about both of those programs and how we're supporting students and staff with mental health. Some things that we want to think about as we move forward is, our SEL implementation is a great program, but it takes a lot of time to buy in. And I heard someone say one time that you have to see, or I read that in order to buy a new product, you need to see it advertised 9 times. And I think that it's kind of like that with adopting a lot of things, and helping just like all of our stakeholders, that would be our teachers, our students, our parents, understand that it's not indoctrination. We're just teaching students how to handle their emotions, how to recognize them, and how to kind of control their emotions instead of letting their emotions control them. And that's what we need, because we want regulated students, and we want regulated adults, and we want regulated community members, and so it all starts here. But it takes time for buy-in, and it also takes time to implement. And so we are very heavy academics, of course, because that's what we do, but there has to be time for students and teachers to explore the resources that are available for their mental health. And we are noticing, of course, that our mental health concerns and needs are increasing with students. Every year, it's tremendous. Last year, Ms. Purcell had asked for us to poll what were counselors doing with their time and how many students were they seeing. And we found that 65% of their school counselors' time was spent on dealing with things that are social emotional regulation, anxiety, emotion control, and I'm sorry, I don't have the whole list, but it's all those things that the SEL will address. This year, 61% of their time was spent addressing those things. So we saw some benefit, but I think as time goes on, we know that the needs are growing, and we're going to try to keep addressing them. And our counselors, we have amazing school counselors that are super committed, and I have to tell you that school counselors have masters in counseling. They are specialists, truly, in your building. There's no other person in the building, most likely, that has a master's in counseling. Even all of our community services board counselors and case managers don't have masters in counseling. So these counselors could have worked in an agency, but they chose to work in a school, and so they did their internships in a school instead of an agency. But they really are trained and highly effective. And so, but a lot of times a student, when they're struggling with something, they really have to choose. Am I going to go to math class, or am I going to go see my counselor and deal with this? Because our schedules are so tight. And I don't know what the answer to that is, except that we are blessed to have a great board that supports mental health and recognizes that. And we have great school board employees and staff that also support that. And so hopefully as time goes on, we'll just continue to make headway in that area. And I am the last, and Jason, he's so sweet. He just stood here, but that was so nice. He said you guys hear from him all the time, and I believe he's going to speak to you later. And I always joke we're the JGs, so it's really fun. But anyway, since I'm the last presentation, you guys stop. I know they're like, what are you doing? Would you guys like to ask any questions to any of us?
Yeah. Board members who would like to begin? That was a really amazing presentation that encompassed so many highlights, and just thank you all for working so hard on it. We'll start off with that.
I agree. That was wonderful. Okay. And I really appreciate that you did show and tell us where we needed to move going forward. So I didn't have to ask those questions. So thank you.
I don't say this to diminish any of the other presentations, but I really appreciate bringing up ADA compliance. That's something that we really need to look at. It's a problem. So thank you.
Dr. Guthrie.
Thank you all. I'm a little overwhelmed. No. There were just a couple of things that come to mind. One is I've heard a little bit about the Geico therapy, and I hope that we're able to increase the number of students who have access to that. I think that's just really critical, and I know that our counselors are doing everything that they can, but students do need additional services. I also keyed in a little bit on the need for a social worker. It's not something we've really talked about much, but if we're seeing that we're successful with having, I would love, when we're talking about staffing next year, to have that come up before the board to be able to provide that support. I remember that there was a conversation about the person we had in place who was helping with delinquency, and I think it may have. I'm trying to remember who came up and spoke about that issue, and I was curious about that individual. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Does anybody remember we had a liaison with the court, in dealing with juveniles. And I don't know if when you were talking about the social worker, I was wondering about that, but nobody's really perking up, but that's fine. But thank you so much. I see strides over this last year. I know there's a lot more work to be done, so thank you.
Kudos to you guys. Thank you so much for all the information and the layout. I know that was a lot of work. So from someone as one of the three sitting on the board that started this back in 2019 during COVID and being a part of it and all the time it took to go through it now and see what we've accomplished, what we need to work on. And a lot of things have changed since then because we did this, 6 years ago now, and the world's a different place now, and we have things that we thought were important before, and other things have kind of taken the place of that, but we're still looking at all the things that I still feel like are very important to MCPS. So thank you guys so much for all your hard work. It shows us, I think, where we are, what we need to improve on, and what we'd like to see for the future. And it gives us really something to start on for the new strategic plan. So this has been a tremendous help personally to me as well. And I think the comment was made about the student needs when we're talking about having the mental health concern and the trade-off with the academics. So for that one, for me personally, that's a no-brainer. The mental health is always going to come before the academics. We can help you with the academics, but we've got to get you right. You've got to be right first. So we'll fix that however we need to with the academic part, but we seriously need to concentrate on mental health, because if they're not comfortable or if they're having other issues, they're not going to be able to learn. So we need to, the mental health is the key. So thank you guys so much for everything. It was a great document. Appreciate all your help.
Ms. Bond?
Thanks. I have no question. I think you guys summed up a little bit for every one of us that have passions and goals, and I appreciate that. Appreciate all your hard time working on this, and I too was part of the beginning, and it was a lot of good things that happened. So looking forward to doing it again. Thanks.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, sure. Thank you all for putting this together. And just to reiterate some of my colleagues, I really appreciate the presentation and the consistency inside the slide deck and the way it was presented. Very easily understood and digestible by us and hopefully the public as well. Thank you.
Dr. Gitry, I believe you were referring to Mrs. Roberts.
I was, and I said delinquency. I studied the 1950s. That's the word that came from, but truancy. There was a discussion about that. Yes.
She's a lot nicer than I am. Maybe you can get her to come up here. That shouldn't have gotten that much of a laugh. No, she's way meaner than me.
And 9:02 p.m. Sorry. That's an inside joke. Sorry, everyone. Again, just to reiterate what everyone said, thank you all so much for the hard work that you put into this. We really appreciate it. Moving on to our next agenda item. This will be related to a comprehensive instructional program, and it has also the acronym CIP, which causes some confusion with our capital plan, but we'll figure it out eventually. Dr. Amanda Widener, Assistant Superintendent, will begin our presentation on the Comprehensive Instruction Program overview. Thank you, Dr. Widener.
The Comprehensive Instructional Program, also known as the CIP. This is a consortium that currently consists of 82 school divisions across Virginia. And the map there shows the participating school divisions. It is not a business. It is a consortium, I said, so it is made up of school divisions. It is run through a collaborative effort with school division leaders and teachers who participate. It was implemented in 2015. It started in Region 7, probably about a dozen school divisions who at the time were reacting to changes in the SOLs and how they could work collaboratively to mitigate some of the challenges that they were dealing with. And through their work together and what they've developed, it's become quite popular. It has now grown to 82 out of 131 school divisions across the state. So as you can see, when you look at the map, we are the only school division in Southwest Virginia that is currently not a member of this consortium. I've been in lots of conversations with principals over the last several months, and many have asked, how come we don't belong? And I don't have a history for you of why we haven't looked at joining in the past, but I know there's been a lot of interest and a lot of questions. So what we did is we reached out to Dr. Matt Hurt, who is the director of the consortium. And he was very generous in his time. In March, he came to a meeting with our instructional leadership team at the school board office, and we also included some principals in that meeting. So he gave us a very thorough presentation of what the consortium does, the kind of resources it can provide. That kind of opened up some more questions for us, so then we asked him to come back again. So he came back again for 2 more meetings, and this time I invited all of our principals, as well as our assistant principals. It was also opened up to our instructional coaches, told each principal, I said, if you have a lead teacher in your building you'd like to bring to this meeting. So again, Dr. Hurt, provided an overview and explained, what the CIP is and what kind of resources and support and benefits it can offer. At that point, I asked principals to take it back to their buildings so they could share information with staff and answer questions and get staff input. And then reached out to Dr. Hurt one more time, and he did a virtual meeting that all of our teachers were invited to attend so they could hear directly from him and ask questions. So this is something we've been talking about for a while. One of the things that I like about it is that the CIP was rooted in the idea that we want to look at student achievement and ways to improve student outcomes, but we need to do that collectively, and that means we have to engage teachers. So what the CIP does is that each school division that participates, they send a representative for each grade or each course, and each year they meet to look at the benchmark assessments that they create. So those are reviewed and vetted by teachers from all the school divisions that participate. And then they also look at the pacing guides. I do want to emphasize that we're not talking about adopting a new curriculum. So this is not a new curriculum. This is not new textbooks. It's really not even instructional materials. That's not what we're looking at here. It's more assessments and access to data that is very strictly aligned to standards, and I think will give us more information on understanding where we need to focus our efforts in helping all of our students achieve successful outcomes. So again, when we look at joining the CVIP, what we would have access to are pacing guides that have been developed through collaboration and collective work with teachers across the school division. And these aren't pacing guides in the sense that this is a scripted sequence that teachers have to follow. It is really a pacing guide that looks at our core areas, reading and math, science and social studies, looks at the standards that should be covered each quarter. The order doesn't matter so much. And using the resources we already have, our adopted textbooks and curriculum, to make sure we're covering those standards, and then giving us assessment at the end of those quarters. Those are the benchmarks. So these common benchmarks which have been refined each year that very much relate and connect to the standards, but also have a high level of rigor. And then they do all the data analysis for us. And so that's a huge time saver, because what we are finding is that our instructional coaches, our principals, and our teachers, they are spending a great deal of their time data mining, trying to build reports and look at information, and the CIP would do a lot of this for us. So in their reporting, and Dr. Hurt is great to work with because he provides all this data, we would have all kinds of information that would break down how our students are performing related to the standards, but then it would break it down in other ways too. So we could see not only how each school is performing, but we could look at courses, teachers could look at their own performance, and then we have this comparative relative data, which is not something that we've really used. So Dr. Hurt really provides a lot of reports, and I'll show you some examples that compares performance not just across the division, but across the state. And I think that could be very useful for us. And the other thing that they've been able to highlight is that there is a strong correlation behind how students perform on those benchmark assessments and the SOL. So this is good predictive data that can help us, plan for how we're providing interventions and tiering our instruction for students. So we see this as a potential time saver because so much of that data analysis would be done for us. So again, this is just kind of the framework of what the CIP looks for. What they've done is, like I said, identifies the exact standards to be taught within the quarter. That's basically what the pacing guides do. So again, we're not looking to replace our pacing guides. In fact, at the elementary level, our KIDM curriculum that we've adopted for math is already aligned with the CIP. So there would be, the alignment there would be pretty easy. So schools and teacher teams then align these pacing guides with their materials that they're already using. Teachers would be able to have some autonomy over the sequence of instruction. And then we've also, part of the process in learning about this is we've reached out to and asked Dr. Hurt to give us some feedback. So I've talked to a number of teachers who have come to our school division recently, who have been in other school divisions where they've used CIP, and even in recent interviews where we've been interviewing, I've had teachers ask me, I hear you guys are looking at CIP. I've used it and it's great. So we've had a lot of feedback from other school divisions that have used it. So that's one comment. These were comments from a 4th grade teacher and an 11th grade teacher talking about the value of the pacing guides and how that curriculum team reviews the benchmarks every year and how much it has helped them aligning their instruction to the standards. In terms of testing, we're not looking to add more testing. I know that's always a concern, that we spend too much time testing in our efforts to get data. Again, the benchmarks, there's 3 a year, and so they are given at the end of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd quarter. These are not extremely long tests, so they're not meant to take 2 hours like some of our MAP tests do. And again, they would be done in reading and math and social studies and science. But again, they would provide specific data throughout the year that teachers could use. What they would probably replace, what we would look at replacing, are our MAP tests from 2nd grade on. So currently we use MAP testing, which we have used as part of the VGA requirement, which is actually going away. And our MAP tests are quite time consuming, and they're very diagnostic, and they do provide some useful data, but what we've heard from teachers is that those reports are not always easy to read, and I don't know that all of our teachers are using them. So MAP testing takes up 3 days, and we typically, like in our secondary schools, they will do a 2-hour delay schedule, so allot 2 hours. So that's 6 hours of testing 3 times a year for these tests. And so part of our implementation would look at replacing MAP testing in grades 2 through 8, where we're currently using it, and using these assessments instead. This is just a diagram that kind of shows you a breakdown of the different structures. So we've got the statewide consortium data. They use a platform called Mastery Connect, which again is going to give us, there's actually a standard tracker on there that would give teachers access to a lot of different reports that would be helpful in their planning and their predictive analysis work, and really, I think, help teachers identify where we need to be putting in place interventions to students directly connected to those standards. When Dr. Hurt came and met with us, he went ahead and gave us some general reports. Again, we would get much more specific things, but one thing I mentioned is that he gives us this comparative data. Because it's one thing to look at pass rates, but if we're not looking at how those pass rates compare or measure up to other parts of the state, we can kind of be looking at them in a vacuum. So this shows Montgomery County overall pass rates for all SOLs, for the past 15 years or so. And you can see that our pass rates have fluctuated. But I think what's significant is he has pointed out where we rank with those pass rates. So last year we improved our rank. We went from 37th to 30th with a 76, almost a 77% pass rate overall. But it's interesting because if you look back at times where we've actually had higher pass rates, sometimes those higher pass rates our ranking in the state was lower. So I think that comparative data can be useful because it's important to know how we're performing compared to other school divisions. So that would be some of the data. And then he broke it down even further. He took that comparative data and then he looked at our ranking in all the areas: reading, writing, history, math, and science, and then broke it down into student groups. So in addition to looking at all students, so for example, in the area of reading last year, for all students, we were ranked 44th. But then when we start looking at some of our specific student groups, there's some big discrepancies there. I mean, for our economically disadvantaged students, we were ranked 102. So that shows us that's an area where we need to be putting more focus. So again, data gives us information, and data can tell us where we need to focus our efforts, where we need more interventions. And I just think the CIP would be an opportunity for us to expand and have access to more data. The other thing that Dr. Hurt likes to look at is not just raw pass rates, but he also looks at percentile rank. So percentile rank takes your score and determines its relation to where you score compared to others. So this chart shows pass rates for schools in 25 and 24, and then also the percentile rank. So if we had almost a 70% pass rate at one school, that actually, in terms of the percentile rank, fell about 41%, which means that almost 60% of other schools or students were performing above that. And then he breaks it into categories. That percentile rank is shown if you're in the top third, it's green, if in the middle third, it's yellow, and the bottom third, it's red. But again, this kind of comparative data we've not had access to or have been using. This is another interesting piece of data that he shared with us. So he did a scatter plot that showed a relationship between poverty rates and SOL performance. So on the left-hand side, you see that's the SOL performance. And again, this isn't actual pass rates, this is percentile rank. And then across is your poverty rate. So if you look at where Montgomery County falls, again, our performance, our SOL performance, is around, the 78th percentile. But the thing is, when you look at the blue dots that are above Montgomery County and to the right, the ones that have identified there, they have a higher SOL performance, but they also have higher poverty rates. So one of the things that's intriguing about the CIP is they have shown that the school divisions participating are making great gains with students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged students in terms of increasing their student performance and their outcomes. I did have a survey that I gave out to staff who came to the information sessions. And so this was a variety of staff who provided input. It was principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches. We did have some teachers to respond. And so we just asked them some questions, after hearing about CIP. And, a majority of them at least have indicated that they think that CIP could improve our instructional consistency and alignment. The majority also think it could improve academic outcomes. And more than a majority are, at this time, directly supportive of joining the CIP. I also asked principals to give me feedback about, kind of what is the pulse of your staff? And most of our schools have indicated an interest that they're open to joining. Now, I'm not going to suggest that we've got 100% buy-in. We still have teachers that have lots of questions, and I think the big thing, should we join, will be in the implementation. And so we would want to establish implementation teams that would include not just our administrators in our buildings, but also our instructional coaches and our lead teachers, so we can talk about how we're going to roll this out, what are the expectations, because one thing I have heard in talking to other school divisions is that the success of the CIP is really predicated on how well the consistency in which it is used. So if we're going to use benchmarks, we need to kind of establish some parameters about how we're using them and why they're using them. The same thing with the pacing guides. So again, by joining, we would have implementation teams here who would develop really some consistent practices about its use. And again, these are just some more comments that we've gotten from teachers who have participated and worked in school divisions that have used it. It just really indicates that they have found value in it. All right, so we think at this point in time, it's the recommendation of Dr. Gimple, and I'll let him speak to this as well as myself and many members of the team that we have worked in, that this could be something that could benefit our school division. So we see value in joining for the upcoming year, and certainly we would evaluate it at the end of next year to determine whether or not it is worth it. In terms of cost, it does not have a high dollar cost. When we look at the cost per student, it's $2 a student. And for example, that would be a little over $18,000 for us to join. We're currently spending $55,000 a year for MAP testing. So there would be a savings there.
Yeah, so one of the things that, and thank you, man, that was awesome. One of the things that I was really keen on, and I've heard over and over during listening sessions and, and other times too, is, we have to make sure that our teachers understand, are aware of, and have a voice on the things that we're doing, right? And so when Amanda and I started talking about this and then introduced it to our directors and some of our principals, this was way back at the end of February, early March. We immediately asked principals, we provided them with this presentation and said, take this back to your schools, at your faculty meetings, and send it out to everyone, all of your teachers, have a discussion, so they could have an intimate discussion with their teachers and their staff within their school, and then come back at the next principals meeting and provide us with additional feedback. From that feedback, we then had all of Amanda sent it out to every single teacher, a survey, which you've seen some of the response from that. Then we even set up a podcast with Matt so that anybody could log on and ask any question directly to him that they may have. So there have been multiple opportunities for input, awareness, anything like that. And right now, really all but maybe one or two principals have come back and said, yeah, my staff's into this. We need this at our school. If you look at this map right here, you can see where we're at. We're lacking the data that all these other divisions have every single month. So our ability to respond is only based upon whether we have this map testing, right, those results, and the previous year's SOLs, which already puts us out of connection because you're talking about a different cohort with different teachers in a different class. When you go to that chart where they have all the different rankings, keep going, one more. If you look at this is data we're going to have in real time. I mean, we cannot accept that our economically disadvantaged students are ranking 102nd with the resources we have here out of 131 schools on an SOL. You just can't do that, And if you look down this list and see the percentile ranks, we got work to do. And the more data we have, I can't think, how can it possibly hurt us? It's going to give us this in the very first semester, actually before that, very first quarter, we'll have data that we can respond to as a division. I'm trying to come up with plans for a school improvement office that would respond to this stuff directly and offer supports, not just what are you going to do about it, Mr. Principal, but offer actual coaching and support in the schools based on what we're seeing here. We don't have even comparable data across our division yet, where we can compare one of our high schools to another, let alone across 81 school divisions in the state. We need this in order to see how our kids are performing. It's not about accountability. It's not about holding someone's feet to the fire. That's an easy way to look at it and an easy cop-out. This is about knowing where our kids are and how they're performing compared to other kids across the state on the very same assessment.
And by joining the consortium, we become part of a network. So I would hope that this would facilitate more conversations and collaboration between our teachers, but also extend that beyond our school division to other to other teachers in other parts of the state, where we could reach out and say, hey, we've noticed that you're really excelling in this area. Tell us about some of your strategies. Tell us about some of the things you're doing. So I would hope that it would help open up a greater network for us as well.
And I think the accurate data, like you look at this chart, and if you look across and you see like a 77% or 78% pass rate, you're thinking, wow, that's not too bad, right? We're almost 80%. We're doing pretty good. But then you see that the, 35% or more of the rest of the state is scoring above that. We wouldn't know that. We don't have access to all that unless somebody here is really mining a lot of data. And that's really not what I want my principals spending their time doing.
I think the other thing that would help us, and this is another goal we're working on, is to try to build some standard operating procedures around reports that we're looking at and how we're collecting and looking at data, because I know we've got so many different spreadsheets going on in the way that teachers and different departments collect data and look at it, and this would, I think, help establish some unified standard operating procedures.
Board members, are there, Dr. Widener, are you, and Dr. Gimple, are you done?
Yeah.
Sorry. Board members, are there questions? Dr. Guidry?
Thank you so much for the presentation. So I'm definitely open to it. I just got access to the website like just a couple of days ago. I did read there was a dissertation that was on the website. I didn't read all of it. I was hoping that the administrators would have been more positive. It seemed like it was most effective for new teachers. So I'm still thinking through. I just got access to it. But my question about this is that I asked with our former superintendent about why we didn't have a data scientist with all the data that we have, because this isn't data that this is based on the data that already exists, correct?
Yes, this is SOL data that can be built, yes.
So one of my questions, and it's not just about this data, for the longest time, we got presentations and the data was, well, I don't want to say too much about it, but it begged for analysis. So why doesn't the administration have a data scientist because this is data that can be pulled and processed by MCPS. And I'm not saying that there's not value to CIP, but the idea that this data just doesn't exist isn't accurate if it's already publicly accessible data.
Yeah, I can't comment to why that wasn't done before. I know that as a principal, a long time ago, I spent an inordinate amount of time making charts just like this. As a matter of fact, I shared some of those with you all when I interviewed, right? Those are things that I put together, but I spent a lot of time mining that myself. I'm not sure why we don't have somebody employed here. We actually do have somebody in mind. It's part of our school improvement office that we are talking about, that we will have compile all this and provide it for our principals so that they can go to work on addressing some of it. But yeah, that's a great question. Why we didn't? All I see this as is even more data that's going to be given to that person so that they can assimilate that along with all of our schools, and we're going to have a handle on exactly how our kids are performing, maybe in a way that we haven't previously. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting for teachers to learn how to be data scientists or administrators, but with a division of our size and the complexity, if we're going to be data driven in our decisions, we should have somebody who can actually work with data at the school board office. One of the things that I'm trying to puzzle through, and I'm not going to say too much more, is the assessments. Now, some of the presentation, like the comment talked about unit tests. Is there more assessments other than those three, or is it that some divisions created assessments from CIP? I was confused on the level of assessment.
So as I said, CIP uses a platform called Mastery Connect, and that's where the benchmarks are administered through. So at a minimum, we would want to be using those quarterly benchmarks, those three. In addition, they also have other assessments that teachers could choose to use, and those assessments are tied to a standards tracker. Mm-hmm. So, let's say, because a lot of times, teachers assess all the time, and they might get to the end of a week and on a chapter or a unit, and and they might have their own assessment, or they might have an assessment that we've created through Performance Matters or through our curriculum, but they would also have access. Again, in the first year, we would not make that a requirement, but there are other assessments that have a standard data tracker so that it'll break down each question for each student and show their level of mastery as it connects to each standard.
So we would do away with, if we're doing some of that, because it sounds like it's optional during the first year, but we would make it more mandatory after that if we stay with CIP. So like I've heard some real complaints about Savas, the assessments, the unit assessments. So would we replace those assessments with CIP assessments, or would we be giving duplicate? Because the argument I've heard is, well, no, we've adopted Savas as the ELA curriculum, and so therefore teachers have to use that assessment.
Right now, the expectation is for teachers to be using the SAVIS unit test. But keep in mind, over the course of a school year at the secondary level, there's only four. Only 4 unit tests. So if you look at 4 unit tests plus 3 CIP benchmarks, I mean, that's not a lot of assessments in the course of a year.
Yeah, I was just wondering the integration of our platforms that have assessments in it with the assessments other than the quarterly ones. That's all I was asking about, if there was going to be duplication of assessments if we're doing additional ones. That's all. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
So for me, overall, any data that we gather, if we are not using it to move things forward, it doesn't matter where it's coming from and who's doing it. So what I like about this is it is in real time, and that we can look at students who are in groups that are not being taught. I'm just going to put it that way. They're not, and hasn't been for years. And that's why we have the disparities. And able to, every month, look at that child and say, still not getting there, and being able to go back and say, what do we need to do different? It's worth it. And as far as the accountability piece, if we're not holding people accountable, what's the point? We'll be right where we're at now with disparities and looking at numbers that are 100, where we're ranking 102, is that what it was? When it comes to groups of our students, that's not acceptable. So something different has to happen. So if this is what we can find at this point to help move us there, then I'm ready to go.
I want to say too, this, so it's not about, for me, this is about providing our teachers with more information, right? And if it impacts what they're doing in the classroom, however, fantastic. But it's giving them more tools. We have incredible teachers. Our teachers work their tails off. They're doing everything they can. Now they have even more information and more data to shape how they're doing it. And I think any teacher in our division is going to embrace this. Our teachers are outstanding. I put them up against anybody, any division. Now they're going to have more tools, and that's all I want to provide for them. And I see this as a way of providing them with just a little bit more data, a little bit more information. It may inform exactly how they teach or what they teach, and it's just about improvement. That's all it is.
Ms. Parton?
So thank you, Dr. Widener, for presenting this. So what bothered me the most, I think, when I first started looking at this was that we were the only ones that aren't using it already. So apparently there's been lots of success, I would say. And then on top of that, I think what we do as far as assessments go, we use the performance assessments, which are fine, but it's like an autopsy. We're doing something after the fact and see what our performance is after the fact. So kind of referring back to what Ms. Franklin mentioned, this is going to be more to inform instruction, which is what we need. Mm-hmm. This is going to be guiding us along the way and giving us information in real time is what we need. And if we're all the time saying we need to put our kids first and do what's best for our kids, this is it. Because when we commit to graduate, and whether it be go to college, get a job, whatever they do, They're going to be outside of Montgomery County, and they're going to be competing with everybody in this state or in other states, and we have to know where we're at with everyone, because that's what's fair to them. So I'm all for this. I don't see how it could be I don't see anything bad about it. I don't see how it could be but more than just a win-win for us, in my opinion. So thank you for this. I think it's great. I like seeing the data. I like knowing where we're at with the state. You know, I would even like to see where we're at nationally. I know that's kind of far-fetched, but, you know, I try to think beyond. The goal is to get our kids where they need to be when they leave here. Now, get them prepared here, and this helps us, but the goal is to have them succeed when they leave. So I see this as being a great tool for that. So thank you.
Ms. Bond?
I agree. And I agree that it is a great tool. And as far as, for me, the accountability piece is, in all our professions, if we get better tools, we do it to improve our job performance. So that's the accountability piece to me. Just looking at it and seeing and not moving forward with it, to me, that's just not a good use of any of this. Why have it if we're not going to use it to do better? So for me, that's kind of, it's a win-win looking situation at accountability and a toolbox. You know, if I buy a new Dyson hairdryer at work, I'm doing it to do a better job and a quicker job and make it more efficient. So the purpose of doing something like this, and I'm all for it, is to enhance and to better. And not that we don't have great teachers, but I'm sure they would welcome, wow, okay, we need to improve on this. I need to focus on this better. It's not that I'm not doing good. I just maybe could change the way I do something. And like I said, I think we all welcome that in our professions every day. So I think it's a great thing.
And that speaks to the one of the big functions of data is that it should inform instruction.
Dr. Guthrie, you're exactly right. Whether we adopt this or not, whether we're going to use it, we will have a data dashboard in this division that shows our principals how they compare at least to our 4 schools, right? At least to our 4 middle schools, at least to our 9 elementary, at least to our 4 high schools. So at least our principals see how they compare to each other. We can handle that for sure right now. I would love to have this in addition so we can also see it outside of our county lines.
Mr. Roberts, did you share yet?
So for all the reasons that have been previously stated, I support this.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, I think this looks great. I like the reduction of testing time associated with not having MAPS testing. I do like MAP tests. I think that they provide good information. However, this looks like it's going to also provide some of that same information about how our students are performing and what they need to focus on in order to improve over the short term for their long-term successes. Having that information, what do you need to do over the next month, 2 months, in order to be successful over the next year or decade, I think is very critical. And MAPS provided some of that, and this seems to provide, is going to provide that guidance as well. So I appreciate the presentation, and I'm in support of this as well. Thanks.
Thank you. I do have 2 questions. Have sample assessments been provided for each grade level?
Not at this time. I mean, I think part of joining the consortium that will give us access to those. So again, if we make the decision to join, one of our first next steps would be putting together an implementation team to start looking at those benchmarks, and then coming up with the plan of how we're going to use them. You know, typically they recommend doing it at the end of the quarter. There would be conversations about the recommendation from the CIP is that you don't prep students for these tests. You let them take them cold so that you get a true assessment on what they know and where they can perform. We would probably have conversations, are we just using this to inform instruction so they're not counted for a grade? Or do we want to look at incorporating this into their grade on their report card? So those are conversations that we would have on teams here.
So it wouldn't be possible to get access to samples before joining?
He gave us access to reports and some of the materials, but in terms of the actual assessments, I think you've got to join the consortium to see them, yes.
And then you talked about the secondary ELA curriculum and those kind of assessments that already exist and how this might fit within that, but the elementary curriculum has a lot of assessments, so how might that fit in, and would it potentially reduce anything further than MAP?
I think those are things we'll learn along the way. I think we do have a lot of built-in assessments already through our curriculum. You know, our instructional coaches have worked with our teams. You know, like in math, we have created common assessments through Performance Matters that are aligned to KIDM at the elementary level and then to Math Space at the secondary level. So I wouldn't say that those things are going away. Again, you think about the course of a marking period, you know, a 9-week marking period. This is one assessment over 9 weeks. I know from my experience, I liked every week to be giving some type of assessment to see where my students are so that it could inform the instruction that followed the next week. So I think we would continue to use a lot of those materials. But then over time, as we become more familiar with the new tools that we're dealing with, we might be able to streamline some of that.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, I think that the data speaks for itself, and the slide that's up and the slide previous to that that says MCPS data core ranking, there are some achievement gaps that we need to address, and this is an interesting tool to work toward that.
Yeah, I'm excited
So-
for the conversations that this is going to generate, right? How different they're going to look between like Ann and Julie and Lori when they go out to schools, and Amanda and the rest of our school improvement team. Those conversations are going to look different now. They're going to feel a little different. So we're going to be talking about data as it's happening, you know, right after that first quarter assessment rather than waiting.
Is this a voted item or?
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask. So on my script that I have in front of me, that this is a presentation and no action is expected. So what are the next steps?
Really, we just want to kind of get your thumbs up on it. You know, you know, it's not curriculum change. It's not, you know, we're not. It's a resource. But I want to make sure that my board is fully informed as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, because there's a cost to it, right? And so I don't just want to throw down, you know, close to $20,000 here and you guys say, yep, well, what are you doing and why? I want you to know way ahead of time. And so, yeah, so it's more once you're, you know, your thumbs up on it that, yep, this is a good use of our funds. We feel, you know, I have instructional experts here that feel this is a great direction to go into in terms of our instruction, and our principals are behind it. And so I have that. Yeah, I want to make sure that you guys are understanding that it's a cost behind it though too. And that's where I really need your thumbs up on it.
All right, board members? I'm good.
So we got blasted when we made decisions and we didn't get good input from our community, meaning our school community. But it sounds like you all have done your homework with that and done your best to try to include everyone and give them some information about what this is and to give feedback. So I'm good with it.
I'll just echo that statement.
Dr. Guthrie?
And I'll say too, I'm not, if we get into this and the data's not what it looks like here, or it's delayed, or it's not usable, we're not doing it after this year, right? But I think it's worth, with all the divisions that are already doing this, and with the reports I've heard from other superintendents on how they're able to use it, I think it's worth digging into, at least giving it a shot for a year. And, we're going to do everything we can to support that data, with our schools. So, but if it ends up not being what I think it is, or what I've been told it is, then, we'll drop it. I have another use for $18,000, right?
All right. Well, we look forward to more information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on, we have our School Health Advisory Board Annual Report. Mr. Jason Garrettson, Director of Student Services and Safety, is available if there are any questions. And this is regarding the School Health Advisory Board 2025-2026 Annual Report. Mr. Garrettson, anything you want to share to kind of kick us off?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have no formal presentation. The board has not done a good job over the last several years in preparing an annual report, so we're pleased to bring that forward this year. Our team did share that we wanted the report, team decision to kind of make the report a little more kind of newsletter style rather than just a big report. So I think you've got just some quick high points there from our year's worth of work. You've got a couple current pictures. You've got kind of the 50,000 mile view down on some of the topics we discussed. And you've got a lot of quotes from members of the committee. We do share on page 3 recommendations. We shared the 3 recommendations, which tie in nicely to our presentation from earlier tonight regarding mental health. Based on some of the data that we reviewed on the team, we know that we're providing some very good mental health supports to students and families, but we also see on surveys there still seems to be some report of folks not knowing about those or knowing where or how to access those. So that was a recommendation to us, MCPS, is to continue to emphasize the availability. We also talked a lot in our final 2 meetings about the concept of a trusted adult for students. Every student needs at least one and preferably several trusted adults within the building, trying to develop that kind of relationship where it's not just your math teacher or it's not just your PE teacher, but that's an adult that you could go to in a pinch when you had an issue, and they would care for you beyond the subject matter. And then lastly, just in general terms, being very intentional about establishing a positive school climate. I think you've seen from a lot of the earlier presentations, we're already trying and doing a lot of that work. I think looking ahead to next year, starting with our transition day, I think that's a good example of, again, just trying to be very intentional about making your school the place where you want to come and be involved, and that is your community. That's your school. Those are your people, not just the students, but the adults in the building as well. So beyond that, I'm happy to answer questions. You see our meeting dates. You see our membership, notable discussions, and then some direct quotes. Happy to field questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garrettson. Board members, any questions? Dr. Guthrie?
Thank you. So as a board member who pushed for more of a report, I appreciate this. I'd love to see in the future a report that makes recommendations for what the board can do, where it should be investing, whether the policy, resources, staffing, to help improve in this area. So like in the presentation earlier, it was social worker, there are things that we should, be doing. So it would be great to see the board give us action items or recommendations that are division-wide. So I'm going to keep pressing because it's a really valuable resource for the division. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's a great team. I love working with this team. You know, we consolidated two of our advisory committees into this one group. I think that was a terrific decision on the part of the board. And also, I will note that, you know, we did bring forward a policy to you just last month that the board approved, the updates to the communicable disease policy. So again, we appreciate your support, and we certainly can continue to grow in the area of our annual report.
Other board members, any questions? Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, I think that there's room for some recommendations and whatnot. I do really like the format of this newsletter style report that y'all put together. I think y'all should consider, if you haven't already, posting this to some areas where it's easily visible by the community. So thank you.
Yes, sir. We intend to post it on the webpage. We just wanted to have it before the board prior to posting it up. We'll absolutely get that done with the board's approval.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garrettson.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. In accordance with policy 3-3.6, payment and payroll procedures, the school board in the past has authorized the superintendent or their designee to review and approve the payment of the final June invoices and include a report of invoices paid at the next scheduled school board meeting. The July invoices are included in this request since there are no school board meetings scheduled between June 16th and August 4th, 2026. This will allow us to pay personnel and vendors in a timely manner. Do I have a motion to authorize the superintendent or designee to review and approve payment of the final June invoices from, sorry.
Go ahead.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We're not going to make it to 10 till before 10 p.m.
No, I thought you had finished. I'm sorry.
So you moved. I'll second. Are we there?
Okay. Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Okay. Our next agenda item is related to state SOQ bonus information. Angie Bland, Director of Finance, will provide information on the state SOQ bonus. This is information and no action is expected.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Gempel. This evening I will provide additional information on the state SOQ bonus and the implementation process for eligible employees. And I just have 2 slides, so I'll try and help you with that 10 o'clock if at all possible. At the April 21st board meeting, the bonus was approved here by the board, and following that approval, the required certification was executed and submitted to the Commonwealth, and the state funding associated with that bonus was received yesterday. The one-time bonus will be distributed to all eligible employees no later than August 15th. The eligibility requirements remain consistent with those from last year's bonus program, as well as those requirements from previous years' retention bonuses that we have seen. We've seen those over the last couple of years, and prior to that, we saw a lot of COVID bonuses that, and kind of the same premise, it was all to support retention. I'd also like to provide some clarification regarding several of the positions that are listed here as excluded for the bonus. These positions are considered temporary in nature, and they are not permanent district employees. There were some questions that were raised last year regarding the bonus and the potential of giving the bonus as well to these positions, so I wanted to address those this evening if I could. Regarding substitutes, the compensation plan that was approved as part of the pay plan last week for the budget includes a substitute pilot program. It's an incentive program for substitutes. It's on page 23 of the pay plan, and we're very excited about that. So it's going to offer the opportunity for substitutes who work for a number of completed days per year to actually receive incentive pay. And so there's different levels we do that. So we're very excited. We're going to work on it this year. We're going to review that program, and hopefully we can build upon that. But that's a way to offer a similar thing in relation to, it's an incentive. It's a bonus as well for substitutes. And we are seeing those substitute ratios, the fill rates climbing. And so we're hoping that this will further support that and increase the retention for those substitutes. They're very valuable to the district. With respect to the homebound teachers, we did some research on that, and all but one of our homebound teachers also serve as full-time district teachers primarily, and therefore they would already receive that bonus. They would be eligible for the bonus. Similarly, the coaches, primarily, the majority of our coaches are also full-time employees here at the district, so they would also be eligible to receive that bonus. As noted earlier, the state funding was received yesterday, so any remaining costs that would be associated with bonus would be supported through the additional year-end revenues that would be recognized and appropriated into the 26-27 budget. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Board members, Ms. Franklin?
So the subs, does that also include our para subs?
Yes, ma'am. That's for all substitutes for the district. We're very excited about it.
Board members, other questions? Dr. Roundtree?
No questions. Thank you.
And I did, if I can take just a moment, I have a very quick budget update to give you. I'm close, I know, 4 minutes, so I'll try to do it. I just wanted to mention that the General Assembly is returning. We're happy to hear that the House will be returning on June 18th, and the Senate will be returning on June 22nd. So there have been some discussions regarding the data centers, I guess outside of the actual General Assembly, and so we're hoping that they can come back, and we're still very optimistic that we'll have a budget prior to June 30th. As we get additional information, we'll be happy to share that with you. I did have one additional request. I don't know if this is possible. There was a joint meeting that was potentially scheduled for June 29th, and I believe that has been taken off as far as consideration. One of the things we were hoping to do at the end of that meeting was to put before you for consideration our capital appropriations. And those are our capital purchase orders that we would carry over into the next year, as well as capital funding that remains in all of these programs, and that would be reappropriating them into next year. So what generally happens with capital programs, obviously a lot of that work happens in the summer, so we have continued invoices that come through. So the way it works, all of the capital payments are actually processed through the county. We do all the work getting everything together, sign off, send it through for payment. It goes to the county, and then they actually have to approve that, and a check is processed from the county. When that happens, around the middle of June of every fiscal year, there's a cutoff so that they can close out their fiscal year just like we do on the school operating side. However, what happens, because there are no meetings until around the 1st of August or later July to August, no payments can be made from middle of June until that's appropriated. So if we meet in August, it would be that second or third week in August before the county would consider it, and then another 2 weeks before invoices could be processed. So we would be looking at not being able to process payments to our capital vendors from the middle of June till approximately September 1st. That would be very difficult to get summer projects done. I don't know if there's any possibility of having them very short meeting, hopefully even shorter than what I'm doing right now, but just to put that in front of you for some sort of approval or consideration to keep those moving forward. They do have July meetings with the Board of Supervisors, and so they would be able to consider those. They also said it would be very beneficial to them. They do have to advertise when they are moving their budget over in July anyway, so this would just be added to that, and that would be one less time that they would have to advertise all of the funding that was being considered.
Is that not something we can do at the June 16th meeting? The timing doesn't quite work?
Absolutely. Sue, unfortunately, the payments will still be being processed until about that time. It's possible that I could put something together. It probably would be the day of that I would know, because they'll be processing payments up until probably the 15th or 16th of the month. I could certainly try for that and see if that's something that I can get together. We just want to make sure we have the appropriate numbers so that we can move that forward, but I can certainly work towards that if that's something that you wanted to consider. It may just be the day of before we would be able to load the documents.
I mean, the June 29th meeting was a joint meeting between the Board of Supervisors and us, which is the time when we typically wouldn't vote on things anyway. But I do understand just trying to like close out the fiscal year and that kind of thing. Are there folks that would be available for a special meeting late in June, as long as I can get a quorum? If June 16th isn't something that's reasonable for Ms. Bland?
I'm fine with that.
I should be able to do it.
Can I just ask a clarification? And this is returning to item H. So the fiscal year closing and opening fiscal, haven't we authorized the superintendent to make these transactions? Or am I missing something?
No, you're correct. So for the item H, that is giving the approval to Dr. Gimple to be able to approve payments through June and July on our operating side. So that would be for payroll and any school operating invoices. For capital, it requires the Board of Supervisors to also approve and reappropriate.
I see. So we can't expand that to beyond operating to capital. That authorization.
Tasha, I'm not 100% sure about that, but that may be something that you can add to that. I don't think we've ever considered that before. It's two letters. I think we remember in the past it's just the outstanding encumbrances, and then it would be any remaining funds for capital.
Okay, I wasn't sure what our policy is about, one versus the other.
Yeah, I don't know that we've done that before. It's policy 3-3.6, so I'm not sure how that's worded, but.
And I believe that refers just to the operating.
I think so.
Can certainly have you, if it's easier, it can certainly have you all vet that. If you didn't want to meet, I can certainly, as Dr. Gitchy's suggesting, if you included that, I would, obviously have your eyes on it prior to me approving anything.
Okay, well, that seems like we can get some more information by June 16th and then make plans based on what we are and are unable to do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you so
that.
much, Ms. Bland. Okay. Are there any items of unfinished business? Are there any items of new business?
Two things. One, Ms. Osborne has put some updated policies. Please take a look at those before we come back in August. That way you don't have to slog through like 1,000 of them. Two, if you're bored, please take a look at the Montgomery County General District Court's docket on Thursdays. Look for school zone camera violations. It's appalling. People, it's disgusting. People going 50 miles an hour in a 20. Vile. Keep that in mind because I want to talk about that later. That's enough out of me.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any other items of new business? Any announcements? Okay. Our next scheduled regular meeting is June 16th. Agenda prep will happen tomorrow. We need to go into closed session to discuss a procurement matter, but I would like to amend that closed session to include a personnel matter that we did not really complete discussing before we came into open
So moved.
session.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Franklin and Mr. Roberts. Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We're now in closed session. Thanks, everyone.